Zara Chen pressed her face against the viewport of the transport shuttle, watching the massive space station grow larger against the star-filled void. The Galactic Combat Academy floated before them like a metallic beast, its countless lights twinkling like predatory eyes. Other species called it the most prestigious military institution in the galaxy. Humans called it their last chance to prove they belonged among the stars. First time seeing the Academy, human? The voice belonged to a Crexian cadet sitting across from her. His crystalline blue skin caught the light, making him look like a living diamond. The way he said, "Human," made it sound like a disease. Zara turned away from the window, meeting his gaze with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. First time. "Yeah, you." The Crexian laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Third-generation Academy graduate. My grandfather served with honor. My father commanded fleets. I suppose they had to lower their standards to let your species in. How considerate of them. Zara's voice carried just enough sweetness to mask the venom. I'm sure your family's proud that nepotism still counts for something. The shuttle docked with a metallic clang that resonated through the hull. Zara grabbed her single duffel bag and joined the stream of new cadets flowing into the Academy's reception hall. The space was enormous, easily the size of 3 football fields, with a ceiling that vanished into shadows above. Hundreds of species mingled in the hall, towering Vorthak warriors with their 6 arms and battle scars, sleek Nerian scouts with their fox-like ears twitching at every sound, bulky Gornix heavy infantry, each one looking like they could punch through a starship hull, and scattered among them barely 24 humans, looking small and fragile by comparison. "Attention, new cadets." The voice boomed from speakers hidden throughout the hall. "Report to your assigned dormitories immediately. Orientation begins in 30 minutes. Late arrivals will be expelled." Zara checked her datapad. Dormitory Block 7, Room 247. She navigated through the crowd, noting how other species stepped aside for the larger, more intimidating cadets while barely acknowledging the humans. A few actually bumped into her, not bothering to apologize. The dormitory hallways stretched endlessly in both directions, lined with doors bearing room numbers and species designations. Zara found 247 and pressed her palm to the scanner. The door slid open to reveal a small but functional room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a shared refresher unit. Her roommate was already there, unpacking with military precision. The girl looked human, but something was off about her movements. Too fluid, too controlled. "I'm Maya Singh," the girl said without looking up. "You must be Zara Chen." "I access the roster." "Access." Zara dropped her bag on the empty bed. Most people say checked or looked at. Maya paused, her dark eyes meeting Zara's. "I'm not most people." Before Zara could ask what that meant, the intercom crackled to life. "All cadets report to the main auditorium immediately. Orientation begins now." The auditorium could have held 10,000 beings comfortably. The new cadets occupied perhaps a tenth of the available seats, clustered by species in an unspoken segregation. Humans sat together in one small section, looking like children at an adult gathering. The lights dimmed, and a holographic figure materialized on the stage. It was humanoid but clearly artificial, its features too perfect, its movements too precise. "I am Commandant Vex," the hologram announced. "For the next 4 years, your lives belong to this academy. You will be pushed beyond your limits. You will face challenges that will break the weak and forge the strong. Many of you will not graduate." The hologram's gaze seemed to sweep across the assembled cadets. "The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Only the strongest species survive. Only the most capable warriors earn the right to defend civilized space." A murmur ran through the crowd. Several alien cadets glanced at the human section with barely concealed amusement. "Your first challenge begins tomorrow," Commandant Vex continued. "Combat scenarios designed to test your natural abilities. Those who fail will be sent home immediately. No second chances. No appeals." The hologram vanished, leaving cadets in darkness for several heartbeats before the lights returned. Conversations erupted throughout the auditorium as cadets began filing out. "Combat scenarios on the first day?" Zara muttered to Maya as they joined the exodus. "They're not wasting any time." They want to eliminate the weak quickly, Maya replied. Standard military doctrine. Why waste resources training those who will never succeed? Zara glanced at her roommate. You sound like you know a lot about military doctrine. I read extensively. They made their way back to the dormitory, passing groups of alien cadets discussing strategies and boasting about their combat prowess. The Krexian from the shuttle was holding court with several other cadets, his crystalline skin gleaming under the corridor lights. Humans, he was saying, loud enough for them to hear. I heard they have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no poison glands. How did they even survive long enough to develop space travel? Pure luck, replied a Vortak cadet, flexing his 6 arms. They hit on their little planet until more advanced species found them. Tomorrow's trials will send them home where they belong, added a Gornix female, her voice like grinding stone. Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks, but Maya's hand on her arm stopped her from responding. Save your anger, Maya said quietly as they continued walking. Use it tomorrow. Back in their room, Zara lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. The artificial gravity felt slightly different from Earth normal, just enough to remind her she was far from home. Through the small porthole, she could see stars wheeling slowly past as the academy rotated. Maya, she said into the darkness, what's your story? How did you end up here? Silence stretched between them before Maya answered. My parents thought I needed direction. Structure. They believed the academy would provide both. And you? What do you believe? I believe tomorrow will be interesting. Zara wanted to ask more, but something in Maya's tone suggested the conversation was over. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing. Combat scenarios, natural abilities, the dismissive laughter of alien cadets. She thought about her brother Jake, killed in a mining accident on Europa. He'd always said humans were tougher than they looked. We're not the biggest or the strongest, he'd told her once, but we're stubborn as hell, and we don't know when to quit. The next morning came too soon. Zara woke to find Maya already dressed in the Academy's standard combat uniform, black synthetic material that moved like liquid shadow. Sleep well? Maya asked, her tone neutral. Like a baby, a very anxious baby. Zara pulled on her own uniform, noting how it seemed to adjust itself to her body's shape. Any idea what these combat scenarios might involve? Physical challenges, most likely. Tests of strength, speed, agility. Possibly simulated combat situations. They made their way to the designated testing area, a massive chamber that could reconfigure itself into any environment. Other cadets were already gathering, species clustering together like oil and water. Commandant Vex's hologram appeared again, this time flanked by several instructors of various species. Today you face the Crucible, Vex announced. Each species will be tested according to their natural advantages. Corrections will face crystalline environments where their natural hardness provides benefit. Vortak will encounter scenarios requiring multiple simultaneous actions. Gornix will be tested on raw strength and endurance. The human cadets exchanged glances. What advantages did humans have? Humans, Vex continued, and Zara felt every eye in the chamber turn toward their small group. Will face adaptive scenarios, situations that change without warning, environments that offer no inherent advantages to any particular physiology. In other words, whispered another human cadet behind Zara, they're throwing us into chaos and seeing if we survive. The testing began with the corrections. The chamber transformed into a maze of crystal formations and razor-sharp projections. The crystalline cadets moved through it like they were born to it, their natural armor deflecting impacts that would have shredded flesh and blood beings. The Vortak faced a complex obstacle course requiring precise coordination of all 6 limbs while managing multiple tasks simultaneously. They flowed through it like dancers, their natural advantages obvious. The Gornix tested their strength against increasingly massive weights and reinforced barriers. Their success was measured in tons lifted and walls demolished. Then came the humans' turn. Chun, Zara, Sing, Maya, report for testing. The chamber reset itself, becoming a blank gray space. Zara and Maya stood in the center, acutely aware of the hundreds of eyes watching them. Scenario 1, hostile boarding action. Your ship has been breached. Adapt and survive. The gray walls vanished, replaced by the interior of a starship under attack. Emergency lights flashed red, alarms blared, and the deck shuddered under weapons fire. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. 3 holographic pirates materialized, each from a different species, each armed with energy weapons that could kill. Zara dove behind a control console as plasma bolts sizzled past her head. Maya moved differently, flowing like liquid mercury to a position behind the attackers. "Behind you," Zara shouted, but Maya was already moving. Her hand struck the nearest pirate's throat with surgical precision. The hologram collapsed, its program terminating. Zara grabbed a loose power conduit, its exposed end crackling with electricity. Not much of a weapon, but it was what she had. She feinted left, then rolled right, bringing the conduit up into the second pirate's weapon hand. The gun flew away, sparking. Maya finished the third attacker with a move Zara had never seen before, something that looked like martial arts but felt deadlier. "Scenario complete," announced Vex's voice. "Time, 43 seconds. Casualties, 0. Impressive adaptation speed." But they weren't done. The environment shifted again. Scenario 2, environmental hazard. Toxic atmosphere, failing life support. Find a solution. The ship vanished, replaced by what looked like an abandoned mining facility. Poisonous green gas began seeping from vents in the walls. Warning displays showed atmospheric contamination reaching lethal levels. Zara's mind raced. No obvious exit, no environmental suits, no clear solution. But humans had lived in hostile environments for millennia. They'd learned to adapt, improvise, overcome. She ripped fabric from her uniform and soaked it in water from a nearby coolant line. "Makeshift filter," she explained to Maya, tying it over her nose and mouth. Maya nodded and did the same, but she was also examining the gas vents, tracing their source. "The contamination is coming from the lower level," she said, her voice muffled by the improvised mask. "If we can reverse the airflow." Together, they found the environmental controls and reprogrammed them. It took precious minutes while the toxic atmosphere thickened around them, but eventually clean air began flowing again. Scenario complete. Time, 6 minutes, 14 seconds. Survival probability, 78%. The testing chamber reset once more, and Zara braced herself for whatever came next. But instead of another scenario, Commandant Vex's hologram reappeared. "Sufficient data collected. Report to your instructors for assignment to training companies." As they filed out, Zara heard the alien cadets discussing the human performance. "Lucky," the Crexian from the shuttle was saying. "Pure luck. Anyone could have done that." 43 seconds, countered a Nerian scout. "That's faster than some of our times." "Fluke," insisted a Gornix cadet. "Wait until they face real challenges." Maya walked beside Zara in silence until they reached the corridor leading to their dormitory. "Maya," Zara said quietly, "that wasn't just reading extensively, was it? Those moves you used." Maya stopped walking and turned to face her. For a moment, her perfectly controlled expression cracked, revealing something deeper underneath. "My parents didn't just think I needed direction," she said. "They thought I needed to learn to control what I am, what we made ourselves become." "What do you mean?" "Humans adapted to survive, Zara, but some of us adapted more than others. Some of us became something new." Before Zara could ask what that meant, Maya continued walking, leaving her with more questions and answers. That night, as Zara lay in bed listening to the Academy's nighttime sounds, she thought about adaptation, about survival, about the way other species looked at humans like they were prey animals that had wandered into a den of predators. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new opportunities to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. But tonight, she allowed herself to wonder if Maya was right. If humans had adapted into something the galaxy wasn't prepared for, something that looked weak on the surface but carried strength in places others couldn't see. The Academy rotated on its axis, carrying them to the cosmic night toward whatever tomorrow would bring. And in the darkness, Zara Chen smiled. Let them underestimate humanity. Let them think of humans as the weakest species. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were 0.3 months into academy training, and the alien cadets had stopped laughing. Zara ducked under a swinging plasma blade, rolled between the legs of a massive training drone, and came up firing her practice weapon at 3 targets simultaneously. All 3 lit up red, indicating kills. Around her, the combat simulation continued with its mechanical precision, but she was already moving to the next objective. "Time!" shouted Instructor Korax, a scarred Vorthak veteran with 3 of his 6 arms replaced by cybernetic prosthetics. "Chun, Zara. Course completion. For minutes, 37 seconds. New academy record." The training chamber fell silent. Even the drone stopped moving. Zara straightened, breathing hard but not exhausted. Months of academy training had pushed her body beyond what she thought possible. She was faster now, stronger, more precise. But more importantly, she was angry. 3 months of condescending remarks, deliberate obstacles, and outright sabotage had forged that anger into something useful. "Impossible," muttered the Crexian cadet, Dex. His crystalline skin had lost some of its luster during training. Turns out even diamond hard hide couldn't protect against academy discipline. The previous record was set by a Nerian scout. Their reaction times are naturally superior. "We're naturally superior," Korax corrected, his mechanical arms whirring as they moved. "Seems adaptation beats evolution in practical application." Zara stepped out of the training chamber, accepting the towel Maya handed her. Her roommate had changed even more dramatically than Zara over the past 3 months. The control movements had become fluid grace, and there was something in her eyes now that hadn't been there before. Something predatory. "Good run," Maya said simply. "Thanks. You're up next." Advanced Combat Simulation. Level 7. Zara whistled. Level 7 was graduate-level training. Most cadets never progressed beyond Level 4. "How did you get approved for that?" Maya's smile was razor-thin. "I asked nicely." The weeks that followed brought increasingly difficult challenges. The Academy seemed determined to find humanity's breaking point. Combat scenarios became more complex, incorporating multiple variables and adaptive AI opponents. Environmental challenges pushed cadets to survive in everything from molten volcanic conditions to the vacuum of space. The alien cadets began developing what could only be called a healthy respect for their human counterparts. Zara first noticed it during the zero-G combat exercise. Most species struggled with 3-dimensional movement in microgravity. Their evolutionary advantages became disadvantages when up and down ceased to matter. But humans had been dreaming of spaceflight for centuries. They'd trained for it, imagined it, prepared for it in ways other species hadn't. Where Crexians flailed helplessly and Gornick spun out control, humans adapted. "It's not fair," complained Vera, a Nerian scout whose fox-like ears drooped with exhaustion after a particularly brutal exercise. "Your species has advantages we didn't know about." "Like what?" Zara asked, genuinely curious. "Endurance. Your cardiovascular system is designed for persistent hunting. You can maintain activity levels for hours, while most species need frequent rest periods. Also," added Kex, a young Gornix who becomes surprisingly friendly with the human cadets, "your cognitive flexibility. Most species develop specialized neural pathways optimized for their environment, but humans maintain broad-spectrum adaptability." Zara looked around the Academy's recreation area, where they were having this conversation. Cadets from a dozen species mingled in ways that would have been impossible 3 months ago. Combat training had a way of breaking down barriers, especially when everyone was equally exhausted and equally determined to prove themselves. "Plus," Kex continued, lowering his voice, "there are rumors about some of the human cadets. Special modifications, enhanced capabilities." Maya, who had been silently listening while reading a tactical manual, looked up. "What kind of rumors?" "Nothing specific. But Instructor Thalix mentioned that some human cadets test outside normal parameters. Reaction times, pattern recognition, combat adaptability, beyond what baseline genetics should allow." Zara glanced at Maya, remembering their conversation from the first day. "Enhanced how?" "Unknown. Command keeps that information classified." But there's speculation about genetic modification, cybernetic implants, or other augmentations. That night, Zara confronted Maya directly. "Are you enhanced?" Maya set down her datapad and turned to face her roommate. For a long moment, she said nothing. "Define enhanced." "You know what I mean. Kex thinks some human cadets have modifications. Genetic, cybernetic, something that puts them beyond normal human parameters. And you think I'm one of them? I think you move like liquid mercury, fight like you were programmed for combat, and process information faster than anyone I've ever met. So yeah, I think you're something more than baseline human." Maya stood and walked to their small porthole, looking out at the stars. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. "My parents were part of the Enhanced Human Initiative, a classified project to prepare humanity for integration into galactic society. They knew we'd be judged by physical standards. Strength, speed, natural weapons, armor. Things humans lack." She turned back to Zara. "So they changed that. Genetic modifications, neural implants, accelerated muscle development, enhanced reflexes. They created humans who could compete with any species in the galaxy on purely physical terms. How many of you are there? At the Academy? 12. In total? Maybe 300 across all human colonies." Zara absorbed this information. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to see if baseline humans could succeed on their own. If natural human adaptability was enough." Maya's expression softened slightly. "You've exceeded every expectation, Zara. Your Academy record isn't because of genetic modification. It's because you're exactly what humanity has always been: stubborn, adaptable, and absolutely refused to accept limitations." The revelation changed nothing and everything. The next day's training proceeded as normal, but Zara found herself watching her fellow human cadets with new eyes. Could she identify the enhanced ones? Were their movements just slightly too precise, their responses marginally too fast? It didn't matter. What mattered was the upcoming Galactic Combat Championship, an annual competition between Academy cadets. Winners received immediate commissioning as officers in their species' military forces. Losers got a few more years of training and significantly less prestigious assignments. The championship was held in the Academy's Grand Coliseum, a massive amphitheater that could simulate any combat environment. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, including military commanders, political leaders, and media crews. "Attention, cadets," announced Commandant Vex. "The championship will consist of 3 phases: individual combat, small unit tactics, and strategic command simulation. Each phase eliminates the bottom performers until only the top 10% remain." Zara glanced around at her fellow competitors. Nearly 500 cadets from 30 different species. The humans numbered just 24, evenly split between baseline and enhanced. "Phase 1 begins now. Report to your assigned combat zones." The individual combat phase was brutal. Each cadet faced off against multiple opponents in randomly generated environments. Victory was measured not just by defeating enemies, but by tactical efficiency, resource management, and adaptability to changing conditions. Zara found herself in a simulated asteroid mining facility, facing 3 opponents armed with various weapons. Her equipment consisted of basic mining tools and emergency supplies. Nothing that looked like a conventional weapon. Her opponents, a Crexian, a Vorthak, and a Nerian, had clearly drawn better equipment loads. Military-grade weapons, armor, battlefield sensors. They moved through the facility with confidence, hunting her like apex predators stalking prey, which was their first mistake. Humans hadn't become Earth's dominant species through superior strength or natural weapons. They'd done it through intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to use tools in ways no other species had imagined. Zara rigged the mining equipment to create improvised explosives. She used the facility's internal systems to trap her opponents in maintenance shafts. She turned the environment itself into a weapon, collapsing sections of tunnel to separate her enemies and pick them off one by one. When the simulation ended, all 3 of her opponents were eliminated, and she'd suffered only minor injuries. "Impressive," commented General Thorne, a human officer observing the competition. "Classic asymmetric warfare. Use your environment, divide your enemies, exploit their assumptions. The second phase was small unit tactics. Teams of 5 cadets faced complex scenarios requiring coordination, leadership, and tactical flexibility. Zara found herself teamed with Maya, Kex the Gornix, Vera the Nerian Scout, and Dex the Crexian. An unlikely combination, but one that proved devastatingly effective. Scenario: Planetary Assault. Announce the system. Your team must capture and hold 3 strategic objectives against superior numbers. Duration: 1 hour. The simulation placed them on a hostile world with rocky terrain, limited visibility, and enemy forces outnumbering them 3-1. Conventional tactics would result in quick defeat. Suggestions? Zara asked as they huddled behind cover. Direct assault, suggested Dex. Use my natural armor and Kex's strength to punch through their lines. Negative, Maya countered. We're outnumbered. We need to be smart about this. Vera, what can your senses tell us about enemy positions? Zara asked. The Nerian scout's ears twitched as she concentrated. 12 contacts to the north, 8 to the east, 15 to the south. They're attempting to encircle us. Zara studied the tactical display. They expect us to try to hold all 3 objectives simultaneously. What if we don't? Explain, said Kex. We let them have 2 objectives, initially. Concentrate our forces on the 3rd, make them come to us. Then, when they're committed to the attack, we use Vera's speed and Maya's combat skills to take one of the abandoned objectives, force them to divide their attention. It was a risky strategy that required precise timing and absolute trust between team members. It shouldn't have worked. It worked perfectly. Vera's reconnaissance kept them informed of enemy movements. Maya's enhanced capabilities allowed her to eliminate key targets with surgical precision. Kex and Dex provided heavy combat support when needed, and Zara coordinated it all, adapting their strategy in real time as conditions changed. They captured all 3 objectives with 12 minutes to spare. Outstanding, General Thorne remarked as they exited the simulation chamber. Textbook combined arms tactics. You used each team member's strengths while compensating for weaknesses. That's graduate-level strategic thinking. The final phase was strategic command simulation. Individual cadets were given control of entire fleets and asked to achieve victory conditions against adaptive AI opponents. It was the ultimate test of leadership, tactical thinking, and ability to function under pressure. Zara sat in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet positions, resource allocations, and strategic objectives. Her mission: defend a crucial trade route against a numerically superior invasion force. The AI opponent was ruthless and intelligent, adapting its strategy based on her responses. Traditional defensive tactics failed quickly. The enemy simply had too many ships, too much firepower. But humans had never been traditional. Instead of trying to defend the entire trade route, Zara abandoned the outer systems and concentrated her forces. She used the enemy's numerical advantage against them, forcing them to spread out to cover the territory they'd captured. Then she struck at their supply lines, their communication networks, their command structure. The AI adapted, but Zara adapted faster. Every time it developed a counter to her strategy, she shifted to something new. Guerrilla tactics, false retreats, feints within feints. She kept the enemy off balance, never fighting the battle they expected. When time expired, the invasion force was scattered across a dozen systems, their advance stalled, their supply situation critical. Cadet Chun, announced Commandant Vex as the results were tabulated. Your defensive strategy resulted in complete mission success. The enemy invasion was repelled with minimal friendly losses. Your tactical flexibility and adaptive command style were exceptional. The championship concluded with an award ceremony attended by military leaders from across the galaxy. As Zara stood on the podium, she looked out at the audience and saw something she'd never expected: respect. The alien officers who'd once dismissed humanity as the weakest species were now studying human cadets with professional interest. The academy instructors who designed challenges to break human spirit were nodding approvingly at human achievements. The results of this year's competition, announced Commandant Vex, have prompted significant re-evaluation of species combat ratings and military doctrine. Humanity has demonstrated capabilities that exceed initial assessments. Later, as cadets celebrated in the recreation areas, Zara found herself surrounded by aliens asking questions about human tactics, human adaptability, human potential. "How do you think so flexibly?" asked the Vorthack commander. "My species tends toward specialized thinking patterns." "How do you maintain performance under such varied conditions?" inquired a Crexian officer. "Most species have optimal environmental parameters." Zara thought about how to answer. "I think it's because we never had optimal conditions on Earth. Our planet tried to kill us with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts, predators, disease, climate change. We survived by learning to adapt to anything. And now you're adapting to the galaxy," observed General Thorne with a smile. As the evening wound down, Maya found Zara on one of the Academy's observation decks, looking out at the stars. "Thinking about home?" Maya asked. "Thinking about the future. 6 months ago, most of the galaxy saw humans as barely civilized primitives who'd stumbled into space by accident. Now they're asking us to teach them adaptive tactics. How does that make you feel?" Zara considered the question, vindicated, but also worried. What happens when they really understand what humanity is capable of, when they realize that our weakness was just camouflage? Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps they'll learn what we've always known. That survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest or the most heavily armed. It's about being the most stubborn. It's about never accepting that something is impossible. It's about looking at a challenge that should destroy you and asking, how do I turn this to my advantage?" They stood in comfortable silence, watching the galaxy will pass a viewport. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new training, new opportunities to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. But tonight, Zara Chen allowed herself to feel satisfied. The weakest species in the galaxy had just dominated the most prestigious combat academy in known space. Let the galaxy try to figure out what that meant. In the depths of space, Earth continued its ancient orbit around an ordinary star. And across the galaxy, military academies began updating their curricula to include courses on adaptive warfare, asymmetric tactics, and something they were calling the human doctrine. The universe had underestimated humanity once. It wouldn't make that mistake again.